Welcome back, everyone, to another lovely episode of Nopes and Opes. I am joined by Highland. Can we find Lance? No, he's off camera. I think my brain just stopped for a second there. I don't know what happened, but Lance is off to the side. He doesn't want to be on camera for this episode, but maybe he'll make an appearance. Today, we're going to talk about something interesting, something that I'm going through. Highland, would you say you're going through right now?
No, not necessarily for myself.
No, it's big for me. It's something that it has been mentioned on the podcast before, and something that, I guess I'll just say, I'm going through a transition period. And what I mean by that is just life is changing for a lot of facets of my life. A lot of things are changing, and we're transitioning into a different phase of life, I guess. So, and we want to actually go back to the book for a little bit and pull one of the quotes from here to kind of lead us into this conversation.
Yeah.
So I will read from page 38 of Highland's book, which is available in the podcast description.
First of all, hold on. Before you read, it just looks really weird to me. Like when we were doing this only on audio and we read an excerpt from the book or whatever, it was like, okay, whatever. Like nobody really knew if we were reading or just making it up or whatever. But now there's like video documentation
reading.
And it just looks funny to me. Like you've commented on the style of the
design
of the front cover there. And I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, like, I'm just thinking now much more of how other people are going to see it on the video. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, I could have done, like when we were hiding behind audio only, it was like, oh, whatever. Yeah. And now I'm like, everything's critique. Everything's like, oh man.
It's much more real. The blindfold's off.
Yeah, more and more. But just in my mind, I'm just sitting here thinking, oh man, I could have done this. I could have done this. And just the reality, like just having video documentation of things makes it much, much, much more real and much more kind of significant, I guess.
What's funny is that I am kind of happy that I have this video documentation. I had this thought the other day, and we'll get back to the book. But I had this thought the other day that, like, I am excited to one day show my kids this. Just to be like, do you want to know what I was like when I was 26? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Like when I'm like 55 or whatever. And
when you're
like,
really old?
Really, really old. And they'd be like, Dad, what were you like when you were 26? Because I always wonder that about my parents.
Yeah.
Because I've seen pictures of my parents when they were little kids.
Yeah.
And whatnot, and at certain ages. But this age, from like 20 to like 30, is kind of no man's land for what my parents were doing and whatnot. And all the pictures, because there was no social media, they didn't really keep them. They didn't keep them around. So it'll be interesting that they can see live me have a conversation with you and just the things I'm worrying about or the things I'm focusing on, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Hopefully maybe I'll be able to show it to them and be like, hey, relax. Like, look at how freaking stressed out I was at this time. Or look at, maybe it'll teach them some lessons or whatnot. I don't know.
Maybe
just a thought.
Maybe they'll learn something.
Really like, Dad, I don't watch your stupid videos. But okay, that's fair.
Who knows? Who knows?
But yeah, just a fun thought. So back to the book, available in the podcast description. A transition period is an event or period of time that forces an individual to either assume or deny more responsibility for their own personal lives.
And actually, this is within the teenagers chapter. And like as in all things kind of in dealing with the book, I am kind of surprised actually at how many ideas are put forth in this book that actually have quite a bit of meaning and maybe should have gained a little bit more traction. But I mean, just the idea of transition periods, like as I've gotten older, like within these past 10 years and doing the podcast with you and kind of speaking with some other people, especially people my own age, and just kind of reliving some of the things that we're thinking about and talking about, I realize how important transition periods really are and how eventful or how significant they really are to people. And watching ourselves go through, what we're going through here, and trying to create something from nothing and try and build it up, and just all the pains and the kind of struggles and the losses and the wins and things like that. But
why it's brought up in the teenagers chapter, and what I like about it is this is when you become a teenager, is you say is the first time you will experience a transition period.
yeah, and it's a huge one.
And one thing that's important for transition periods, and you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of the language that talks about is this is the first time where, as an individual, you can essentially take responsibility and know right from wrong.
Yeah, you definitely can take responsibility, but a lot of times, I mean, there's a straight up denial as well.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, an important aspect as well, right? We can, and transition period is just a word. You can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
I don't care about that, but yeah, the chance to, like, the first chance to actually assume responsibility and take responsibility in a positive way, or to deny it, is huge. And it's a big learning process. And a lot of times we make a lot of mistakes and we fail miserably, and that doesn't change for the rest of our lives. Like, we're not going to succeed all the time. And a lot of times transition periods are really, really tough.
So I am going through a transition period, which I will talk about in this episode. What's the last transition period you went through?
Geez, I think maybe, I think choosing not to return to the school last year, that was a big choice for me, and that was a pretty momentous decision, and it put a lot of things in motion. Like, if I had returned to the school, you and I would never have met, and this would not have been possible. And I think for me, that was probably the closest that I've been to a transition period recently. But
the transition periods, you kind of describe it in the chapter, but they can include anything such as a marriage, a divorce, a new job. It doesn't have to be like a specific period of life. I think it can just be kind of like a moment in time as well.
Oh, absolutely. Any time where you feel you have to make a choice, right? Where there's things that you have to decide, like, am I going to do this? Am I going to take this path, or am I going to take this path?
Yeah.
And
am I going to assume this responsibility, or am I going to deny this responsibility?
And how am I going to move forward in the best way possible, right? That's good for me. Or how am I going to move forward how am I going to take the path with the least resistance?
Yeah.
Because as human beings, that's what we want all the time. We, like, in a general sense, I think it's true to say that we want things easy, right? We do not want to struggle.
Yeah.
And so, and in a lot of ways, taking responsibility is a huge struggle. It's like, what? Why would I do that? Why can't I just let somebody else take responsibility, or let, whatever it is that you decide. But yeah, oftentimes when we are in these periods, it is rather messy and not fun, and a lot of difficulties to take the path that means assuming responsibility.
Yeah. So in previous recordings that we've done, it's been mentioned kind of in short, and I think this will be a good episode to just kind of really like get into what's going on.
All right.
So my transition period, or what's going on with me, is I am moving away from Minnesota. I initially moved here and was hoping to pursue a career in comedy and production, and a lot of life stuff happened. Some shit happened, man. Some relationships ended. Life kind of got flipped upside down. And now, with having gotten fired from my job, I have kind of run out of money I've run out of money. And I'm getting out of my lease this month, and I am going to move back home. And so it's this interesting time where, of all the things we've talked about on the podcast about taking responsibility, now I can actively try and do those things instead of just talking about it.
Well, that's the thing. The unfortunate thing about life is you don't get to try. You either do it or you don't, right? And there are going to be consequences. It's not like, let's just try to take responsibility and see what happens. No, life doesn't play like that. Like life is going to kick you in the ass no matter what. And that's the really unfortunate like news for all of us.
Yeah.
Because it's not a matter of, oh yeah, that sounds fun. Let's try that out. Let's see what that's about. Absolutely not. I mean, in a lot of ways it's a game, but life does not mess around in this way.
Yeah.
Like you either do it or you don't.
And it's a decision I made that I struggled with because one of the reasons why I've stayed in Minnesota was because of the podcast. Because I do really believe in it. I want to see its success and I want to really grow this medium, whatever you want to call it. I wanted to do well. And so that's why I've been staying here. But financially, it's just not been great. I've been trying to find other jobs and just had a lot of rejects and rejection come my way. And it's tough out there in the job market. And I don't want to work a corporate job because it's soul sucking for me and I want to pursue my dreams and whatnot. So that is a decision that I made, was to go home because it'll relieve a great deal of responsibility financially. Like it'll really help because I've been kind of just underwater, just trying to swim up to the surface, and it's been tough. I'm already so far behind financially that it's almost nearly impossible to catch up. So that is the reason why I've made the decision. And it was really tough. Like I struggled with it for a couple of days of just getting really down. And, you work so hard to I work so hard to build a sense of independence after having ended my relationship and then moving into my own apartment, defining my own routine, getting a job, getting work, just kind of doing all of the things that you should do as an adult and take responsibility, which I did. And then to have it all kind of flip upside down again is pretty frustrating. But I mean, it's life. It's what has to happen. But it's just an interesting time because I think if you have any questions, I think that would be helpful because I'm in the transition period. So it's a good kind of time to dissect.
Well, I think there's a couple things that I'd like to say, and then certainly I have some questions. But one, transition periods are always going to be rough. There's never going to be like, oh, that was the greatest transition period ever. It's a time of like really tough decisions, really tough ways to move forward. It's always going to create some difficulties. It's never really going to be a great time. Two, like listening to that, you've gone through a lot of transition periods, right? The ending of a relationship is one. That's a huge one. That's one that for most of us, that's going to be one of the bigger ones in our lives. And
it wasn't just like a small relationship.
No.
Like some people are like, oh, we dated for 6 months and then we ended things. I'm like, okay, you will move on very quickly. 8 years in the making, people. It has taken a toll. I'm working on it.
It is taking a toll.
It's to this day.
Current.
But we just gotta roll with the punches, I guess.
No, but that's only one. Then you moved into a new apartment.
And I've never lived by myself ever in my entire life. I've always had some kind of roommate, whether it be Emmett. Even when I lived in college, I always had a roommate. And when I became an RA, I still had roommates.
Yeah. And then you lost a job.
Yeah.
That's another
I didn't lose a job. I got fired.
Oh, well, okay. I was trying to be polite, but yeah, that's another transition period. Tough, right? And then now moving to another city again. I mean, within a few short months, you've gone through it, buddy. Like,
and like I haven't gotten to catch up from one of the transition periods.
Yeah.
Like they've all just kind of cascaded into one giant.
Yeah.
Like when I described it, like, how was, 2024 for you? I'm like, well, the first half, like end of 2023 to beginning of 2024 so far, been a doozy.
But yeah, been a bit rough of a ride for sure. Yeah, I guess what I mean, like putting it into that perspective, I guess as a friend and kind of just looking at things, I don't know. I didn't really like I'm a little bit disappointed in myself because that's kind of shocking to put it into that perspective to say
Yeah.
like, hey, you're going through
Once you list it all out, you're like, oh shit, this
Yeah.
fucking sucks.
yeah, like I like now I'm worried, man. Like, how are you, my man? Are you okay?
I mean, I'm doing better. I've been better, but it's been something that, like, I had this thought the other day. I'm gaining some confidence back, and I feel like a lot more resilient. Like if I had gone through all of this 3 years ago, oh my god, I would have been a mess. Like I was at a point where I couldn't even handle just little things about daily life. Like I was really struggling with depression and anxiety. I was on antidepressant medication, anti-anxiety medication, and I was just like, it was like crazy town. Like I struggled, and
What?
now I feel resilient.
Well, okay. So that's another question. What do you think has helped this period? Because I feel like this has got to be one of the tougher periods in your life. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So what?
Honestly, the past 2 years have been just freaking ass.
Dang.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it's crazy because a lot of, like, high school was great for me. I don't want to say that I peaked in high school, but, like, mentally, I was like, man, life is great.
Well,
Everything's
in
good.
high school, you were probably about 45 back then.
Yeah. So, high school was fine. And then I got into college. And as we've talked on the podcast, I struggled with college, making friends and whatnot. And then, of course, at the end of college, COVID happens. And then really took a hit with my own kind of mental health. And then that ties into the period of the last kind of like 2 to 3 years. And then, I don't want to harp on the relationship thing, but like that fucking sucks. Like how that all took place. And yeah, like it's just been really tough. And that's why every time I talk to people, they're like, hey, how you doing, bud? And I'm like, yeah.
Tapping you on the shoulder gently, like,
yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah, when I went home for Thanksgiving at last, they were like, so like, you're good? And I'm like, I mean, that's a loaded question. Really, that's loaded because you don't want to. The thing is like with this kind of stuff, like it is my responsibility. It's my own burdens or whatever you want to call it. You don't want to dump them on people. Because once you start to, like, if someone's like, how are you doing? If I really want to be like, let me give you the list. And then I'll go down it. And they're like, oh, I get why you're moving home. I'm like, yeah, okay. Some shit's happened.
Yeah.
And like I was out with someone recently and we were talking and they're like, so yeah, Minnesota just kind of sucked. And I'm like, yeah, let me go through why Minnesota sucked. And then I listed everything and they're like, yeah, I get why you're moving. And I'm like, yeah. It's not been great. But I don't know, like with everything, good days and bad days. Some days the problems or the things that I've gone through reside more in my brain.
Well, like two things. What do you think is different within yourself that gives you the resilience, or where does the resilience come from? And then number two is what are some things outside that have helped, like that have maybe helped to create the resilience or helps to handle this situation a little bit better than you might have 3 years ago?
Yeah. Well, one, and it's a big credit to your book and you as an individual, but I take responsibility for everything now, genuinely.
Yeah, I feel like you're just dying right now, like just totally underwater, just like I can't handle all this freaking responsibility.
That's why I feel like a 45-year-old man because I'm like, God, I'm stressed about everything. I don't have freaking health insurance.
I feel like my book and my influence has just buried you, my friend.
No, but it has helped me handle it because there was a time when I was in Chicago and I feel very bad. I did not take responsibility for anything. And in my relationship, my partner at the time took responsibility for everything, like all adult decisions, like grocery shopping, everything. I was a bitch. I was absolutely just like a crying baby. Who wants to date that? I wouldn't want to date that. I didn't feel like a man. I felt like a little boy.
Okay.
So now having read the book and having, the discussions we've had, I just like it put the power back into my own perspective of like, okay, this is happening to you. Not much you can do about that. What like the things you can do or things that you can control is how you act, how you're going to take responsibility, how you're going to try and move forward. Like how are you going to try and handle these obstacles rather than laying down and just letting the world beat on me? How can I get up and try and fight back? So
Okay.
that's what has created the resilience. The external things that have helped me through this, there haven't been a lot. Well, genuinely, like you have been an amazing friend during this time, and you've gone through a lot of the same things as me. Like you were also fired from the same job, so
Yeah.
and like there have been a lot of times where like I just go over to Highlands, we sit, we have a drink, we go for a walk. They're very peaceful times that helped me through just like all the shit, just fucking shit. Because I don't like to burden other people with it because it's almost like it's like so much. If I like sit down and I talk with my friends, like these are all the things I'm going through, they're like, wow. It's like they don't know how to
I just
help you, right? No, but I mean, your line of work and everything, your skill set and whatnot, you can deal with people going through tough situations and transition periods, right?
Yeah.
And so, with my family, I mean, I hate seeing them worried about me, and I hate pity. Like, I really don't like when people are like, I'm like, you're making me feel worse about this. Like, I'm trying to shed some light on it or look at it in a humorous way, but then by them doing that, it makes you go like, fuck.
Well, the good news. Do you know what I'm going to say?
Congratulations, you're a human being.
Well, yeah, I could say that too, but this guy, you're not going to get a lot of pity from.
Yeah,
which
sure. is something that is really appreciated because I think pity is this response when they're like, I don't know what to give you or how to listen. So they just throw pity your way and hope that it's like, I feel bad for you. And it's like, I don't need you to feel bad for me. I already feel bad enough for myself. I don't need more people adding to that pile.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that in my like work and the things that I like to do with kids or adults or whatever is I'm not going to throw a bunch of pity your way, but I will work with you to develop the skills and the abilities to handle things, right? To give you the confidence to be able to rise above whatever it is you're dealing with. And yeah, I think pity it's wasted. It's like, I'm not going to waste my time on that, man. Let's get to it and let's overcome.
And externally, I haven't really gotten to do anything for myself because financially I've struggled so much. So like, and I don't really have any friends in Minnesota. Highland's the like one. I told Highland this the other day, and it really shocked him. And it's not a great. I'm not necessarily proud of it. But Highland's the first friend I've made probably in the past 6 years.
That's not good.
And he's 50.
Yeah, we gotta change that for sure.
Right.
That's really, really bad.
And it's maybe it's me.
Don't worry, everyone out there. Rowan is okay. No matter what you're hearing, no matter what you may be thinking, he is going to be okay. I promise you.
Yeah.
It's not a pretty picture, but he'll
well,
make
that's
it.
the thing. Like every time I tell people it, or I give them just a little glance into what the life is like.
Yeah.
Everyone is like, God, that's like, ooh. And I'm like, but this is reality. Like you can't bat away from it. And it's crazy how.
Well, can I interrupt you because I want to ask one question. Accepting all of the responsibility and by my influence and the book and all of that stuff, it seems to have buried you. So in what way do you look at that and be like, oh, this is a positive, like, great. I feel much better. Right. In a lot of ways, I mean, I think it's a positive.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people out there are scratching their heads saying, what the heck, dude? You sound like you're just dying right now and hating life. Like, how in any way is this positive? Do you know what I mean?
I totally agree. There's two things I want to say. One, I did see a video recently of someone who was around my age, and it was this girl talking about her situation and how she basically is feeling buried and she's struggling. And the video went viral. And she's just talking about how hard it is in life rent being raised, just like socioeconomically,
Yeah.
how hard it is to be my age. So a lot of people my age are experiencing that same thing. Granted, I kind of made a lot of bad choices leading up into this point that just took away like all of my money. But that's beside the point. So to answer your question, yes, I am buried, but the way I look at it positively is that I haven't resulted to any other means to deal with it. Like I'm not turning towards alcohol. I haven't really turned towards drugs. I don't feel like I'm necessarily depressed. I still am like actively doing stuff. I'm planning for the future. Like I'm aware of everything that's going on right now. Like I'm fucking tell you, I'm aware.
Yeah.
And I'm not ignoring it. Like I can see it. I'm just like kind of bombing and weaving. I'm like, just you wait. Like I'm gonna throw in a nasty uppercut here soon, and I'm gonna fucking knock your ass out. And at the same time, like the decision to go home really helped me feel like a sense of acceptance where it's like, okay, as we've said in the podcast and it's talked about in the book, you are going to fail. You're going to try and take responsibility and it is not going to work. I tried to make it here. It hasn't worked. Like I genuinely cannot afford to pay another month's rent if I were to stay here in May. I don't want to ask other people for money. I don't want to be someone that people just throw money at. And that doesn't help you solidify the skills you need to live the life that you want if you're constantly relying on others to help you through the tough times.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say, yes, I went through another tough time like 3 months ago where I also didn't have a job and my parents helped me out and it sucked. I freaking despised it. I don't like asking for help because I understand how financially it's tough for everyone. So for them to give me money is like, dude, if you ask me for money, I got nothing. I got like $3 in my pocket. That's all I got for you.
Yeah.
And so the positivity comes from that idea of looking at what I'm going through and feeling resilient. And it's like, hey, given all of these really bad circumstances, you've been able to survive it. I have this feeling of like I'm creating a really interesting story. Like it develops a great character. I feel very humbled. Like I don't feel like I'm also like the job that I had to quit. The people I'm around, they're all super wealthy. They're all rich. It's essentially a country club.
Yeah.
And I see these people daily and I can just tell how not humble they are by their actions, the way they carry themselves in the world. And I just am constantly reminded of like where they're at financially and in their life and where I'm at.
Yeah.
And it also makes me feel good because I'm like, in some ways, I feel like I'm happier than these people. Like they'll come in and I'll be like, hey, welcome in. Like I will put my hand out to be as kind as I can to them.
Yeah.
And some people will just look at me like, what, this fucking crazy bald guy. And I'm like, are you that miserable? Like, dude, you're financially, you have nothing to stress about.
Yeah.
All the things that are probably problems in your life, you have made problems and you won't take responsibility for them.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, this is from experience and my brother's very wealthy and he deals with a lot of people. And when it comes to wealth, never judge a book by its cover, man. You never know what people's reality really is.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people that look ultra wealthy are buried in so much. So I never put too much faith in just what people look like.
Yeah.
Because we're all trying to fake it.
And the other side of that, like everyone I'm around, you're the only one that really knows like where I'm at with everything.
Yeah.
Like I've tried to talk to my parents about it, but like I can't. It stresses them out to an extent. And then also like I'll get into it and then I'll get the typical like, this too shall pass. And I'm like, I know it will pass. But
or they tell you what you should do.
Well, it's also like, no, it's not necessarily that they're telling me what I should do, but then like they do what parents do. They worry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of don't want you to worry right now.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to let you know where I'm at.
Yeah.
And, you know, with like my
It's
brothers,
bad, but I got this.
yeah, like that's how I feel. And it's so funny. I've told people, like, I've hinted at certain things, and they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm good. Like, I'm fine." And my voice gets really high, and they're like, "You sound like the guy that's not fine.
Yeah.
You sound like the guy that's like, no, 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 no,
You
it's
sound
good.
like the guy that's.
But in reality, like, is the house burning down? Absolutely. But I feel like I'm okay in it. Like, I got a little squirt gun, and I'm just slowly putting out the fire.
Huh. Okay.
I'm
Not
slowly-
the greatest. Not the greatest image that I could put into my head, but all right.
But
All right.
like, it's this thing of like, I feel comfortable in the heat of the fire. My dad's a firefighter, you guys. I feel fine. I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm a pyromaniac.
You got this.
This is a dumb metaphor, but like, it's just something that I haven't really shared with a lot of people because I don't, you know, it's that like, it's the thing that's on my mind the most. And I'm trying not to bring that up with other people. Like, I'm trying to have fun or distract myself or to get away from it. But it's like in the back of my mind, you know? And then people don't understand why I can't do certain things.
Yeah.
They don't understand, you know, why I act a certain way. Like, I've had some, like, I really haven't acted like myself. Like, most of the time, I'm a very chipper, like, sarcastic, funny dude.
Yeah.
With my family, especially, like, I made some comments, like, my brother Noah, who I always have referred to him as Squidward because he's such a cynical, just kind of like railing SpongeBob kind of guy. He said to me, he's like, "When did you become the cynical one?" And I was like, "Oh no!"
Oh.
Like, it was like a slap in the face, right?
Oh man.
And like Emmett, the other day, I made a comment. He's like, I found a 4-leaf clover, and I made this terrible joke where I was like, "Oh, like, yeah, maybe you'll go see your girlfriend and she'll break up with you." And he was like, and I totally threw him off. And I got off the phone. I was like, "Why did I say that? Why am I in this dark place?" I was like, "This is terrible."
Yeah.
Granted, taken out of context and the way I phrased it, even worse. But still,
It sounds really bad.
it sounds terrible. And
Yeah.
I apologize. I was like, "Hey man, I don't know why I did that. That was uncalled for." And it's that thing of like, if you're going through shit, it like in your attempts to get out of it, it'll still seep its way back into your life.
Well, I think that's another important point is if you do choose to avoid responsibility, eventually it catches up to you.
Yeah.
Eventually you have to face the reality. Eventually the blindfold will be ripped off your face and you will face the world that you have created, right? You can avoid as much as you want, but at some point in your life, you will be face to face with the reality that you have created. All of us will.
And one of the things that I've realized from this, and something that I really struggled with, was I had a really blessed childhood in the sense that I was very well taken care of. And I didn't really have a lot of responsibility. Like, my mom and dad, they took on all responsibility. Like, they got shit done.
Yeah.
And a lot of admiration for them and a lot of, you know, just thankful for that. Now I'm at the phase of when, like, once you get out of college, then I think it's like the real transition period where it's like, hey man, this is the point where, like, if you don't do things, there's not someone that's going to be like, hey, remember to do this thing. Like if you don't do your taxes,
the safety net disappears.
Yeah, you get screwed. You know, if you don't find a job, you don't have enough money to pay the rent. Like, no one's there to be like, hey man, like, you should probably do this, or like, here's how you can get through it. So going through all this bullshit and whatnot, it really has solidified like my independence in some way, because I never was independent. I always thought I was. I always thought I was like, oh, I'm this super independent guy that can do all these things. And I just had this like mindset that I was.
Yeah.
But in reality, I was a baby back bitch that relied a lot on others to kind of propel me forward and use them to kind of give myself a lot of validity in my decisions. And then now I've been met with just like a lot of nights alone with Lance, and he's just, you know, he's helpful. He's helpful in a little ways, but yeah, it has been one of the craziest things. And in the strangest way, like, I'm really glad I'm going through it because it's created such a better perspective on how to live life.
Well, and honestly, like when I mentioned in the book, the reason that I mentioned transition period in the teenagers chapter is because, like, in a sense, and it's not necessarily about age or from that 15, 18, 21, 26, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's more about just the idea of seeking out autonomy, right? Moving away from the comfort of your family or caregiver or whoever brought you up to taking care of things on your own. And that's a freaking rough transition. And I don't honestly think that I took that final step until maybe into my 30s.
Yeah.
So I am not one to be like, hey, step up, do it this way, Like,
Yeah.
no, man, I was reliant, and I did not want to take responsibility for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's made me extremely independent in the sense that, like, it really solidified, like, there are consequences to you either not taking responsibility, not taking action, or not planning ahead.
Yeah.
Like, it really was like, life is gonna slap you in the face, and you're gonna be like, why did you do that? And it's like, hey man, you didn't do anything. Like, you gotta take action. And then it's funny when I talk to some people, you know, I can hear them talking about certain things where they're not taking responsibility, and I'm like, that's the easiest thing to fix.
Yeah.
Like little situations.
Well, to me, like, just hearing you say that, I think this is super important, because if you choose to avoid it, life will beat the hell out of you. Guaranteed at some point. But if you choose to take responsibility, if you make the decisions, if you take the actions to create the life that you think is best for you and all of those around you, life can be freaking beautiful.
Yeah. Life
can be amazing. Life can be exactly what you want it to be. It's not guaranteed, right? There'll be little hiccups along the way. But yeah, it in the end, like, it's really, really complicated.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make it seem overly simple.
Yeah.
But in a way, it's pretty dang simple too.
Yeah. And it just takes, like, I'll speak for the people that are just now reading the book or just getting into this kind of phase of life. Like, for us in trying to take responsibility for essentially like the first time ever, yeah, it's really tough. But I think as you go along, you kind of build this thick skin and you kind of build resilience. Like, for instance, when Highland lost the job, we had talked about it, and you have been in this situation before.
Oh, so many times.
And so you're
too many times.
Like, he's a veteran.
I'm embarrassed.
He's a veteran. I'm a rookie. And I'm kind of like, what are we going to do, man? And you're like, hey, let's have a drink. Let's go for a walk. We'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
You're a little more calm and collected, and I can feel myself starting to be way more calm, which I really love as a skill, because that's something with, like, my dad and mom. Like, my dad, is a firefighter, and he handles these extremely intense, traumatic situations.
Yeah.
And he has this ability to just, like, batten down the hatches, and he's just cool, calm, and collected. On the inside, he might be screaming. I don't know. He's also a little bit of an adrenaline junkie and, kind of thrives in those environments.
Yeah.
But I always really admired that in, a father figure, in the idea of what I consider a man, being able to just be calm and be able to handle your shit. And it's something that I'm starting to find. And it's like, I say all this, and of course you look at my situation and it's like, no, you haven't. But it's like, for all of these lessons to come into my brain and to learn them, all of this shitty stuff had to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I would have had the mindset I have now if I didn't go through all this stuff. So I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful in that sense. And one thing I wanted to add, as you were talking about, like, if you don't take responsibility for your life, it'll start to bite you in the ass. I want to add, if you try to make someone else take responsibility for your life, they will resent you. And it is how you tear apart relationships, you tear apart family. Like, no one else can do it for you.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you cannot. You cannot assume responsibility. Parents do their best. They raise their child and they assume responsibility for as many years as they can. But in the end, it is absolutely our own responsibility. Yep. We are responsible for our own being. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're fine. But, like, people will try. Like, I one thing.
Well, and we'll try to manipulate people
Yeah.
to take care
Yeah.
of responsibility
And,
for us.
you know, something bad will happen, and you'll be like, "What are we gonna do about it?" And you're
Yeah.
like, "We? This is all on your side," you know.
Yeah.
And like I can see it with like Highland. Like you've been extremely supportive in all of this bullshit, and have really been like the thing that's just been like the positive force in my life right now. Like my family's super positive and whatnot, but I haven't relied on them as much because I'm like, you guys, I really don't get it. Because if you were in my shoes, you'd be like, this is bad. Like my older brother Noah, he would not be able to handle this. My younger brother, like every time I tell him, like kind of the situation I'm in, he's like, duh. He's just kind of dumbfounded, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what's
But
going
the
on.
crazy thing about this is when you say that Noah wouldn't be able to handle it or Emmett would be a little bit lost, the really cool thing, and this is going to sound really strange and just more bizarro Highland talk, but
I mean, that's on brand.
yeah, I got to keep it going. I've worked so hard to create that
Yeah.
image already. But you really don't know what skills you have and what you can overcome until you are in the fire.
Yeah.
Right? You have to face this, and you have to get to the point where you do feel confident enough to know, like, hey, this is bad, and I'm going to come out the other side, and I'm going to be better. I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to be faster, whatever, this, that, and I'm going to come out on top. And you don't get that confidence. You don't get that experience. You don't get that feeling of overcoming. Like, you can't read a book about it. You can't have someone tell you about it. You've got to be in it. You've got to experience it.
And something that really, like, it'd be very easy to play the victim right now. Like it would be
It's so easy.
It'd be so easy. Like I could sit here, I could cry, I could get super emotional about all the shit that's happened. But
if
then
you start crying, I'm out of here.
But then I realized, like, I mean, it's all my doing.
Yeah.
Like whether or not I like it, every single thing that's happened, I had a choice and decision in it happening. So I can't be mad about it. Like I got fired, and you can be like, dude, that happened to you. It's like, all right. There's ways I could have gone around it. Like I could have gone back to him and be like, hey, I'll work for you for less money.
Yeah.
I could have not initially asked for as much money as I was getting for. I could have worked harder. Like there's so many different things where, like, instead of being like, fuck this dude, he fired me, it happened to me, or like, I lost, I had to move, I had to pay all this money, like it sucks. Like, yeah, it does suck, but like that's life. Shit happens.
Yeah.
Fucking move on.
Well, and something else that's really important to you is, the consequences are all on you. And that's not fun for any of us to really accept or admit.
No.
But also the solutions are all on you.
Yeah.
Right? The solutions don't come from someone else saying, oh, like your boss welcoming you back, or your lover, whatever, family, It like all of the negatives are on you, but all of the positives, all of the outcomes that you want to create are also on you as well.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. Like that gives me, like, that's where I feel like, yeah, I can create bad situations with the best of them, man. But I can also create one hell of a solution. Yeah. And I have again and again and again. And I will rise up this time again, way stronger, way better, way smarter. And that's where I just feel like, hey, it's just one more learning experience and one more opportunity to make myself a better person with more abilities, more skills to create the actual life that I want, and pursue this, pursue my dreams, pursue the ultimate reality for myself with the kind of fierceness that I really want. Yeah. So, I mean, I just think there's a lot of, I just want people to feel empowered. Yeah. Right. Like, yeah, it is crappy to know that all of the responsibility is on us, but also that gives us a lot of freaking power and a lot of abilities and chances to create and just like live the life that we want to live.
Yeah, I have something that I think will be a good note to make. So a lot of people have asked, like, how do you take responsibility? Like, how do you do it?
Okay.
And one of the big things that's part of the book and things we talk about is like you have to craft the tools you need to create the life that you want. And so now this is a good metaphor. You're in the fire. I'm in the fire. Like, but you need a lot of heat to blacksmith to make some tools. Okay.
Yeah.
And I genuinely think like the more that life seems hard and the more responsibility you take on and the more it feels like you're just in a fire and it's fucking hot and you're sweating. But we're crafting diamonds here and here, baby.
Yeah.
And that's how you create the tools to take responsibility. Sorry, I'm getting a little too jokey. But it really has helped going through all of this stuff that really just sucks and takes a lot out of me. It has helped me create the tools to know how to take responsibility, to feel like a better human being, a more powerful human being, someone that can do the things that they want to. And the funny thing is like, if someone from the outside, they'll look at my list of things going on and they're like, oh man, that guy has no idea what's going on. He can't handle anything. And it's like, all right, you look at the list. Yeah, I am eventually moving home and whatnot. But now that I've gone through all of the stuff, I have the tools in hand. And it's like, now I can take the steps forward to create the life that I want. So when people ask like, how do you take responsibility? First step is just make the list. What is wrong right now? What is going bad? And start to change some of those things. Like that's what happened to me. Like I easily could have just stayed in the relationship I was and just try to make it work.
Yeah.
I could have I could have moved way before instead of moving in by myself. I could have moved back home.
Yeah.
I could have quit the podcast. I could have given up on that. Like there's so many different things that I could have just given up on. But instead I was like, all right, I'm going to try and change it for the better. Yeah. It is going to suck. But in the attempt to take responsibility, just by trying, you'll learn how to do it. Yeah. I don't think it's something that we can teach you prior. I think you got to figure it out on your own. I think there's certain ideas and steps you can take to make it easier for yourself. Like sphere of influence is huge. Like I don't think I'd be able to be here and be in the position that I'm at if I hadn't met Hyland and had him here while I was in Minnesota, because I haven't relied on any friends here. Like my friendship interaction, like, you know, the people I work with at my one other job, they were great. Like they're really nice people, but like they only know the work me, the like joking around and whatnot. You've actually gotten to know the real me, what's behind closed doors, what's going on. And then, you know, all my family is around the States and whatnot. So it's like, we you know, I can't come visit you. I gotta work. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been very interesting. So any parting words?
Yeah, I'll just say this. You, me, anyone listening to these words, like you got this. You may not feel it right now. You may not think that it's possible in the future, but I promise you, with a little bit of work, a little bit of learning, developing some skills, developing some confidence, you got this.
No. And surprisingly, like I'm fucking fired up right now. I want to go run the lap. Like this started off and I was getting a little emotional, but now I just feel very good. And yeah, if you ever need someone to talk about this stuff with, like please use this as a resource. Like I know we always talk about the email and whatnot. The Facebook group is also a great resource if you ever want to reach out to us there. Yeah. But like, I mean, we don't want people to feel like they're in it alone. Like
oh man, nobody's in it alone. Nobody.
And it's one of the hardest things to do alone. So if you're listening to anything we say or you're trying to take responsibility, let us know. And we don't have to share it with people. We can keep it private, but like we really want to do know. So if you want to reach out to us, it's nopeopepod@gmail.com. Again, the podcast is on Spotify. It's also on YouTube. Every single channel is Nopes and Opes. Podcast is going great. I keep saying podcast. I mean to say the book is available in the podcast description. And with that, I got nothing. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And thanks for listening to me ramble about my life. So we got this. See you guys.